This story is actually, I told my wife I was going to tell you guys a story, and she's like, absolutely do not tell that story. This is not the right story to tell to this crowd. I'm going to do it anyway. When I was 19, I took some time off of college. I'm going to date myself here to go work at the Clinton White House. I was one of the most junior people there, which basically meant I got all the weird jobs. But the one thing is, my first day of work, Rahm Emanuel comes up to me and he says, "Hey, listen, I've got a job for you. And here's what it is. You're going to stand here in this room. We have this meeting, and the president's about to walk in, and when he walks in, you're going to shut the door. Can you do that?" And I looked at him, very eager, and I said, "Absolutely, Mr. Emanuel. I can shut that door." So I'm standing there, and a couple minutes later, sure enough, President Clinton walks in, and it was the first time I'd ever been in a room with the sitting president, and I was kind of startled. And what I was startled about wasn't, there was the president or anything like that. It was the fact that he was wearing glasses. And he was wearing glasses, and they were so far down the rim of his nose that it just looked awkward. It looked incredibly awkward. So in this fog, sort of staring at him, when all of a sudden there's, "Hey! Hey!" And I look over, it's Rahm Emanuel. He's got his shoulders shrugged up. He's like, "Who fails at closing a fucking door?" So I could pretty much give that story and step down from stage. I don't think anybody's got to top that. I failed to close the door. So, let me share a more interesting story with you. Simon Sinek is actually one of my favorite speakers, and he always likes to tell a story about powered flight in the 20th century. And it's just, I think it's pretty fascinating because in the 20th century, a guy by the name of Samuel Pierpont Langley, this gentleman right here, was going to be the guy who was going to solve this problem. And powered flight, in a lot of ways, is sort of like the big technology challenge of our day today, too. But back then, it was every smart person in the world wanted to solve this problem. They wanted to dig in and do something innovative. And this guy was going to be the guy who was going to solve it, and the reason for that is because he really had all the ingredients that we think about, the classic ingredients that we think about when we think about solving a hard problem. He had capital. The Department of Commerce, actually the Department of War, gave him $50,000, which was a lot of money back then to solve this. He was high pedigree, high education, Harvard graduate, on the board of the Smithsonian Museum. And he also had a dream team. This is the kind of guy that could write a letter to anybody in the world and say, "Hey, come join my team," and he did. He assembled a dream team. In fact, his team was so strong that the New York Times was actually shadowing them around as they were starting to think about their problems, think about what they were going to solve and how they were going to solve it. So great, all the recipes that we can think of. So why have very few of us ever heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? Well, because a few hundred miles away, two quirky brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, based in Dayton, Ohio, were trying to solve the same problem, only there were some differences. Number one is that they didn't really have very much money. They owned a small bicycle shop. Number two, not a single person on the Wright brothers team, not a single person on the Wright brothers team was a college graduate. And number three, there was very little access to talent. After all, it was Dayton, Ohio. So if you look at Samuel Pierpont Langley's story in the form of a three-act play, the first act of the story being where you sort of get to know the protagonist, you get to know the problem they're trying to solve. The second act is where they actually have to solve the problem. And the third act, hopefully, things turn out for the better. But look at Samuel Pierpont Langley. In the first act, you hear a lot from him, a lot of great stuff. This is going to be the guy that's going to solve the big problem. But in the second act, where the team actually has to dig in, you start to hear very little. There's really not much activity coming from the team, and in the third act, they very much fizzle out. Let's look at the Wright brothers. In the first act, these guys fall completely under the radar. No one really knows who they are. But in the second act, you start to hear of this team, this small team of people, based in Dayton, Ohio, that's starting to develop prototype after prototype after prototype. They're failing a lot, but they're starting to gain some traction. Something is starting to happen. And in the third act, these guys change the world. And when they change the world, they also walk away with a set of lessons from their failures. So what's the point of all this? Well, the point is that we talk a lot about the first act in startups. We talk a lot about the problem that we want to solve. I'm also someone who talks a lot about the problem that I want to solve. But I think if there's one thing I've learned from my failures is that the second act is really where you spend your time. The second act it is the scariest act. It is the unsexiest act. It is the act where we fail the most, but it is also the most important act. And what I want to do is I want to talk about 3 specific things that I've learned from my own personal failures. And the first one is to draw things out. Get this present going. Draw it out. So that's the first lesson. So I still remember one of my first days at Mozilla, actually. I was working with our sort of product development team, a team called Mozilla Labs. And one of the first things I did is I sort of walked in for this product meeting with a set of slides, with a set of PowerPoint, that classic sort of business school move. And John Lilly, who's the CEO of the business at the time, turned to me in the middle of the meeting and he says, "I'm going to bleed the business guy out of you. Bleed." John has been somebody who has been totally instrumental in my career, has taught me a lot of things. I think this is one of the more important lessons. Really what he meant by this is, look, bullets are easy to hide behind. And I spent a good chunk of my career just creating bullets, because you can always make bullets sound good. But to actually draw something out, to actually put down a creative concept on paper, is a really hard thing to do, but also a very important thing to do. And John isn't the only person who's been talking about this. You have Jack Dorsey, who's been talking about this for years. Here's the first initial drawing for Twitter. But also, this isn't the kind of thing that's only isolated to Silicon Valley. You can look at people in Hollywood and how they get their start. Brian Grazer is one of my favorite producers. He produced a bunch of stuff, including my favorite show of all time, Arrested Development. Here's Brian Grazer talking about some of the stuff that he did when he was starting his career.
I did. Basically, I was probably trying to take a shortcut because I thought I was smarter than I really was, and I didn't put a high value on trial and error. So I thought I could jump from the law clerk to something, take a leap. He said, "Look, you don't have anything. You don't have money. You can't create the illusion that you have money, so you can't buy a book, or you don't have anything. What do you own? What do you have? What's your leverage?" I said, "Well, I guess I don't have any." He said, "Look, here's a piece of paper. Start writing on it. Now you own that." And that became the thing that
the central idea of your life, in part. You have to own something in order to have value to people.
Yes.
In order to maximize.
Yeah, you have to have something. There has to be an additive, other than just you.
So getting it down on paper, when I started at Groupon, I took a much different approach than I did when I was at Mozilla. Here was a concept that our founder and CEO, Andrew, and I were sort of working on together. It was this program called G's. And this is how it worked. You got to the site, if you came to the site, you earned this currency, we called them G's. You bought some Groupons, we gave you more G's. You earn enough G's, you come to this marketplace, and you get a Groupon for free. The concept was pretty simple, and we started to iterate on it, we started to draw it out. This is a much better approach than my bulleted deck before, and we would iterate on it, and make it better, and finally keep on making it better to the point that we're ready to sort of talk it out. And I think this is another important thing that I learned, is instead of just creating the pictures, get it to the point where you can actually walk it through. So here's me sort of just walking through the actual thing, a protocast that we can share with people so that we can get the right amount of feedback until finally we come up with our polished product. Great. So we ended up getting this out there pretty quick. It was the right sort of agile approach. All things are great. I'm pretty excited about the product, but here's the problem. When you have a product in your mind, and I think everybody in this room probably has had this experience where you have an idea that it's keeping you up at night, and it is beautiful. And when you think about it, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's perfect. For us, we had that vision in our head as well. It was beautiful. It was like the Mona Lisa. And when we looked at sort of the features that made up this Mona Lisa, and we listed them out, there were so many things that got us excited. You got this currency, you got this marketplace, there's these cool levels, it's like a gaming element, there's a leaderboard, people are going to compete with that one another, to completely redefine the way that local commerce is done through this product. And what we did is we made a fundamental mistake, and we went after all of this at once. And here was the final product. A very blurry Mona Lisa. This is the difference between people who know what minimum viable product really is and what it stands for, and people who don't. And I know that there's tons of debate out there right now as to whether minimum viable product and Lean Start methodology is the right way to go. I believe it is, but doing what we did was the wrong way to go, because we tried to build all the products and we cut back, and when we thought about minimal, we thought about quality. That's not minimum viable product. This is minimum viable product. Taking half of those features, right? Taking half of those features and making those features fantastic. Making sure that everything is thorough, the customers are having the right experience. Nothing is blurry, everything is great, and we can add and build to this picture. I think Jason Breed said it best when he said, you want to build something that's half, not half-assed. So one of the tools that I've been using a lot lately is embracing Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law says that an idea will swell in complexity in proportion to the time you give it. So time boxing yourself and making sure you're not going down this vortex of time is a really important thing to do, especially in the first act. Because really what you want to do is you want to get to your second act and you want to start digging in. That's super important. Second lesson learned through failure is the art of the question. How do you ask good questions? So we're coming up on the presidential election. 4 years ago, Vladis Krebs from Orgnet did a fascinating study. He's just great at mining data, and he looked at sort of Amazon's purchase data. And as a lot of you know, Amazon uses collaborative filtering to make recommendations. People who bought this also bought that. Well, Vladis is great at sort of looking at that data across the board, especially like amongst aggregated millions of pieces of data. And what he found was fascinating. He looked at all the books that had been written from the left and all the books that had been written from the right. And what he wanted to find out is, was there any overlap? How many people were actually buying books from both sides, actually looking at a balanced piece of information before they made up their mind? This is October 2008. A certain percent of our country is still trying to figure out and make up their mind on who they're going to vote for. Here is what he found. Look at the map on the left and look at the map on the right. There were 0 bridging books between these two sides. So people were presumably going out there looking for data, but were they looking for data that was going to actually inform their opinion, or were they looking for data that was going to confirm what they already believed? And how much of this happens in product development? Sean Ellis is one of my favorite authors of all time, and this guy, and he's going to be up here later on, which I think is a treat, but he defines success in the startup world as a to-learn list, not a to-do list. Put another way, one of the diagrams that I love is like, if you look at sort of the startup cycle, you look at what we have to really go through to build a successful startup, it really begins with user experience. And if you create the right user experience, people start talking about it, and that develops a brand. That brand gives you scale. And most important, that scale gives you data. But that's where most startups stop. You have a set of hypotheses, you believe in those hypotheses, and so you're getting data back, and maybe that data is telling you that what your hypothesis was wrong. But how many of us actually don't react to that versus actually use that data to inform the user experience? I am certainly guilty of having a super strong hypothesis and getting data back and sort of ignoring that data. And that happens quite a bit, I think, across the board as I sort of look at startups that I'm working with right now. How much attention are we actually paying to the data? So trying to course correct that, I think one of the things that I also was doing wrong back in the day when I was looking at data, and probably still do a lot of it today, is paying attention to opinion. So when I come up with my prototypes and I sort of look at I do focus groups and talk to customers. One of the things I'll often do is I'll ask them what they think of a product. What they think of a prototype. And most of the time, I bet you right now, if I showed you some of the stuff that I'm working on, I could probably get 8 out of 10 of you to say, yeah, conceptually that's a great idea. It's important, I think, for me not to use that anymore, to think about sort of the interaction more than the opinion, to actually watch you interact with the product. And it's something that I under-indexed on for a lot of my time doing product stuff. But just watching people interact with the product is so much more important than watching them interact with the opinion. Here's a user test, an example of a user test.
At least me. And it has a better feel as well. At first I thought it was the other one, and I'm going back just to look again. I do. I think the second one looks better.
So the thing about that is that, she says the second one looks better. We ended up using the first. And the reason we ended up using the first is because as we looked at sort of we looked at her interactions, we looked at exactly what she wanted to achieve. The friction of the first experience was far less. It matched the interaction goals. The point of that being that you're always going to have people that say, I like that better. I like that visual. That one pops for me a little bit more. And I paid a lot of attention to that, but I think the more that I look at certain interactions, the more I look at sort of a set of people behaving with the product, that is really what sort of informs a lot of the opinion. So we actually got pretty good at that. What we didn't get really good at while we were developing this program, this G's program that I'm telling you about, is we didn't get good with this population right here. So these are the heroes of our business. These are the small business owners, the merchants that get up every day and have a brick and mortar business. And what I've learned over the past 3 years from talking to hundreds of these people is that there's something that they love to do, that they have a craft. They love to cook, they love to bake, they love fitness, they love yoga. There's something that they love so much that they want to spend the rest of their lives, their careers, actually doing just that. And what they don't really want to spend time doing is looking at dashboards or thinking about customer acquisition. I mean, that is something that I think a very small percentage of them want to do. So when we had this G's and we had this marketplace idea, we're thinking to ourselves, this is going to be so cool, and people are going to love to interact with it. And I think we proved it out a little bit on the customer side. We did not prove it out on the merchant side. Merchants did not find this valuable. So we took this G's program, completely folded it up, and we've pivoted now to rewards. And the idea behind rewards is trying to get people to be loyal to the business instead of being loyal to Groupon. Because if they're loyal to the business, then I think it's a mutually beneficial sort of relationship for everybody, and that's exactly where we want to be. There's nothing that a merchant loves more than having more regulars. Regulars are what make the business tick. It's just a simpler way of thinking about it. We were thinking about it in a much more complex way than we needed to be thinking about it. And that brings me sort of like the third and final point here, which is tending to the nucleus. So a few months ago, my wife and I had our first child, and I was going around doing what I do, which is asking people for advice because I want people to sort of just give me a playbook on what to do. And I got a bunch of advice, and some was better than the others. But I think the key piece of advice that I took from that time is tend to the nucleus. And what that means is that instead of focusing solely on sort of how you're going to be a good father, or you focus on how to be a good husband. Because if that's strong, if you and your wife have a tight bond, then the rest is going to follow. And I thought that was really interesting, because if you look at sort of your team in a lot of ways, your team is the nucleus. These are going to be the people that are going to be with you when you succeed, but these are also going to be the people that are going to be with you when you fail. And tending to that nucleus is something that I feel like I was definitely not doing a good enough job with. Treating the people that I work with like the rock stars they deserve to be treated with, and also giving the respect that they need to be given, is something that's always hard to do, especially in an incredibly fast-growing atmosphere. And so, Chip was talking a little bit about this before, which is sort of, how do you start to control anxiety in a climate like this? How do you give people power, and how do you give them sort of less uncertainty? But one of the ways that sort of I've been approaching this as of late is really a visual way of communicating progress to the team. Where every day we can get up and look at a wall, and here are all the products that we're building. Here's the progress of everything that's happening. Having a Kanban that not only the engineers and the team, the designers and the team are looking at, but Andrew is looking at every day as well. If he wants to understand the status of the project, anybody can come to this wall and everybody can share sort of the vision of where we're going and where we are right now. It's just super important. And the second thing is really getting together and understanding how do we continuously as a team get better. So we do this thing called retro. Every couple of weeks we get in a room, we talk about what's going right, what's going wrong, and what are the action items, how do we get better. In development, there's this term, continuous integration, making your product better and better and better. We apply that to our team as well. We have to, because when we don't, we fail. And the final thing we do is we really try to take ourselves not too seriously. The other day we launched a product, this was a couple of weeks ago. We ended up staying at the office pretty late. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and everybody was really obsessed with that Opa Gangnam video. And so we're sitting there waiting for customer feedback to start pouring in. And while we were bored, we made this video.
We want everybody to know that this is a product that we're incredibly serious about.
오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 너나 선호해 낮에는 너만큼 따사로운 거 선호해 커피 식기도 전에 원샷 대는 선호해 밤이 오면 심장이 터져버리는 선호해 그런 선호해 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너 그래 바로 너 지금부터 오빤 강남스타일
All right, that's quite enough. You know, I grew up in Detroit, and you know, my mom was an engineer. She immigrated here from India. She wanted to work with cars. She wanted to be an engineer. She ended up as Ford Motor Company's first ever female engineer. What I remember the most about her is that you know we would ride. We would always ride to these auto shows where she would unveil, her and her team would unveil a product that they had been working on for years. There's just so much anxiety in the car because it's kind of like, wow, you've been working on this for years, and you're finally going to get some public feedback. And you know, the curtains would unveil, and if the public feedback was great, you know, it was a great ride home. And if the public feedback was bad, it was a miserable ride home. But that was years of work before she could actually get to the point of failure. Now, how different are times today? We can get to that point in our second act. We can get to the point of failure within weeks, if not days. And I think it's just such an amazing time to be working where we work today. So I wish you guys all the best in your second act. Feel free to think big, start small, and dig in. Thanks so much.